if he's off leash, he's actually he's almost sort of afraid of other dogs, even little ones. He's not aggressive at all. But if he's on the leash, he kind of knows he's restrained and loses his mind a little bit. It
causes a little anxiety in dogs.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
Not all dogs.
And it's sort of like, I know what to do. It's like, just, plant yourself and hold on to the leash.
Yep.
But I've had other people be like, you need to restrain your dog.
It's like, you need to restrain your criticism.
You need to restrain yourself.
No, it's,
But you know what? Actually, the other day, maybe it was even last night. I don't know. The dog walks all run together for me at this point. But there was a guy. I had Otis off leash. It was late enough that the beach was basically dead, and I let him run around sometimes. And a guy with a dog who was on the leash was walking by, and Otis ran up to him. And the guy looks at me and says, I'm training this dog to be like a seeing eye dog. It's not cool for your dog to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a really good point.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, that's true.
Yeah. If you wanted to be that person, you could say, well, it's a really good test then. But no, you don't.
I didn't have a witty comeback. I was I'm sorry.
You're already flustered because your dog's acting crazy. You
by the way, I'm laughing because Beatmaster is like, the leash is aggressive. Dang.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the leash. It's not the dog. Dog's fine. The leash, though.
Yeah.
Ray has a harness, not a collar, at least, and that's helped quite a bit, actually. Once we switched to that, it really helped her, because the collar will make the anxiety worse, because as soon as they start lunging, it chokes them a little.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't actually choke them, but it's uncomfortable.
Then they're panting,
it makes the whole thing worse. Whereas the harness, they're just pulling against the harness, and so I'm able to calm her down faster.
Now, is it a backlatch or a chest latch harness?
It's a what?
Is it a backlatch or
backlatch?
A chest latch? Okay, because I've done, well, like I said, a lot of information about dogs, but if you do one that attaches on the chest, then anytime they go to try to pull, it actually pulls their body back towards you, so it counteracts it twice. Because now not only can not get away.
My vet wondered whether that would be better, but the backlatch harness seems to work, and once it started working, I was like, I don't want to mess with it. So
yeah.
And it's not a pulling. She doesn't pull. Like, she walks and heel just fine. It's only when she sees something that.
Right.
The other thing she does, she'll see squirrels and just want to like run over to them, to the point where the other day she thought she had outsmarted me, because the squirrel came and she's like started to whine a little. I was like, no, heel. And then she waited until we were past the squirrel, and then she tried to jump up on the wall to get it from behind.
Yeah. Oh, Ray.
And I didn't move my arm position, so she fell back instead of jumping. And then she looked at me. I was like, you decided to jump, girl. Like,
dogs are the original out of control AI.
Yeah.
It's funny because Otis does the same thing, where he has gradually decided that skateboards make him go bonkers.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He was fine with them for a while.
That too.
Something about skateboards now. And what happens is he thinks they're a toy. Like, he's not afraid of them. He wants to like bite the skateboard, and it's going to knock somebody off a skateboard. And that's not
the skateboard.
That's not okay. Yeah. It's not your toy. It's not your Frisbee. But it's like, I can see him sort of like being kind of look at me like, I'm like, I see it too. No, we're not going to do this.
But I can ride it. I can catch it, and it'll be mine.
Yeah.
And we'll be famous.
Yeah, that person won't be annoyed with me at all for knocking them off their own skateboard. Dogs. Yeah.
Well,
and yet here we are.
And yet they are worth it. Shall we then record an episode of Daily Tech News Show?
I think we should.
Is that where we're here? Okay.
Yeah, we've all gathered together for something else entirely, and that's the
thing that allows us to talk about dog training. Hey, Justin.
Yes.
Would you be so kind as to read line 3 today?
Oh, it would be my honor, sir.
Would it be your distinct honor?
It would be my everlasting honor.
I will count you in then.
Okay.
No, 8 seconds. I'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks to everyone who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, October, I'll actually say Thursday, October 18th. By the way, that was my fault. I was on the wrong page. Thursday, let's just start this whole thing over.
You had me so freaked out because I checked that
I
twice.
know. That's why I had to immediately go. That was not Amos's fault.
If it makes you feel better, I woke up thinking it was Wednesday. I really did. And was like, oh, yeah, no headlines. Oh, wait, no, it's Thursday.
Okay. Hold on. Reset. And we'll do that whole thing again, Justin. I'll count you in. Pretend nothing ever happened.
All right.
Take 2. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks to everyone who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, October 18th, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline for 2 more days, I'm Sarah Lane.
And in Oakland, California, for the first time in 2 weeks, it's me, Justin Robert Young.
And sitting in for Roger Chang, I'm Anthony Lemos.
Hey, welcome back, Amos. It's good to have you. Roger attending to some family stuff today. We miss him, but it's good to have Amos here. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Facebook has tentatively concluded that the login token attack that exposed information for 29 million users was conducted by spammers and not a nation-state attack, as was previously rumored to be. Facebook is conducting an internal investigation itself and also cooperating with the FBI.
Amazon has launched Whisper Mode for English speakers in the U.S. Whisper Mode can be turned on in settings or by telling the Echo to turn it on, and will cause the device to respond to whispered commands in a lower tone.
So we will now take to referring to her in a whisper on the show. Google announced the launch of Compose Actions on Gmail for G Suite. The feature lets you add attachments or other content from applications like Dropbox, Box, Ignite, and Jira right within the Gmail interface. Users will need to add the services in the Gmail add-on tool. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the second shoe dropping from Apple.
Feel those shoes drop, Tom. Apple sent out invites to to an event at the Brooklyn Academy of Music on October 30th with the phrase, "There's more in the making." Apple usually announces new iPads and various other hardware in October.
So I love the little dance that tech journalism does when these come out, pretending as if they have an insight that is special somehow. Oh, Apple's announcing something else. I bet it's an iPad. They always announce iPads in October. That's just what they do. Where it gets more speculative is, okay, is it going to be an iPad Pro? That seems to be the good money. Will there be other things? And what will the other things be? The smart money is on a MacBook Air, Rev. Are we going to see that wireless charging thing finally show up? And do you think there'll be any surprises, any Apple TV related announcents? What's your best guess?
I think
I keep waiting for all those, original Apple content shows that we keep talking about, but there's really no indication. If you are trying to read the tea leaves of there's more in the making, I don't know. The gather round announcement when we talked about the new iPhones didn't really turn into anything. I don't think that means as much as people would like to think it means.
Really does. Making stuff with your iPad would be sufficient to make that make sense.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that the Air Force or Air Power charger mat, as much as I would love it, might be down the memory hole at this point, considering all the reporting behind it. For this, look, this is something that I think iPads are in a very interesting place. It's curious to see where they want to go, or if it's just such a steady earner for them that it's refresh it, make it a little faster, and ship them out. This is just the new version that you buy when you're buying something for someone for Christmas.
Well, I would love a reimagined MacBook Pro. I have the touch display version. It's 2 years old. It's my Road Warrior, and there are things that are wrong with it at this point. The keyboard display doesn't light up anymore, and the keys are all messed up. And I run it hard, but I'm sort of tentatively in the market for a new MacBook. And the MacBook Air, for a variety of reasons, just because I do a lot of video editing, is not quite robust enough for the next machine that I want. So
unless you get the shadow service and you have a full powered Windows machine.
Unless I did that, and that's something to think about. Although having local storage is really advantageous for a lot of reasons. But yeah, that would be my hope. And the thing is that the touch bar, I like it, but it didn't seem to surprise and delight anybody else. Nobody really likes it. Nobody really uses it that I know of. So I'd like to know what Apple's going to do with that.
Touch bar to me was something that always felt like a mushy middle, even when they announced it. I think force touch for them was something that never congealed in the way that it might have. Whereas now I would just be more excited about. It might be worth upgrading to a MacBook Pro if it fully integrated in the way with that, like with my phone, including with facial unlock and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they fulfilled Sarah's wishes, unfortunately, because MacBook Pros aren't too long in the tooth. I wouldn't be shocked by a MacBook Air. That's due. Obviously, iPads are going to happen. I think we all know that. I'm wondering, though, if we get something else or even just a tease to something else. Yes, AirPower may never come, but that was an example of them teasing something ahead of time. Why we might get, I just have a gut feeling we're going to get a wild card announcement here. And it might be as simple as them pre-announcing the Apple TV service coming next year, or it could be some out of left field product that none of us saw coming and didn't actually get leaked somehow.
I don't know, the wireless charging, if Apple was really trying to just sort of let us all forget about that and it wasn't happening, they wouldn't have mentioned it at their event in September. That's my feeling. So
I think they thought they were going to put it out and they ran into trouble that was unforeseen, and that's why it's being delayed.
Well, that might be true too. Yeah,
now, iPads are coming after the announcement of a lot of other tablet 2-in-1 hybrid announcements from Microsoft and Google and HP and Asus and others. And in fact, we got another one from Samsung today.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that, Tom, because Samsung unveiled the Galaxy Book 2 with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 850 processor, gigabit LTE capability. Samsung also says it gets 20 hours on a single charge. Pretty good. The Book 2 speakers include Dolby Atmos support, and it has an all-new rear kickstand. This might start to sound kind of familiar because it's kind of like a Surface. It has a 12-inch 2160 by 1440 OLED display, runs Windows 10 S mode out of the box. There's also a fingerprint sensor on the upper right corner of the back. Comes with a keyboard and an S Pen with 128 gigabytes of storage and 4 gigabytes of RAM. The Galaxy Book 2 goes on sale November 2nd for $1,000.
Comes with a keyboard and S Pen. Is the feature that sticks out in my mind the most. 4 gigabytes of RAM, probably the one that sticks out negatively the most, but that is too often not the case, especially the pen, right? They often don't bundle in the keyboard, but it's usually maybe a $150 or something like that. Whereas the pen feels like it should be cheaper, and it's always like $50 to $100.
Yeah. Look, this is something that I think it's a natural outgrowth for Samsung. Samsung is a company that is famous for throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. If they can get into that Surface market, then hot ham water, they're going to do it.
Yeah, because Surface Pro 6 is $900 before you buy a keyboard, right? Which is going to cost you $150, and then if you want the pen, that's going to cost you another bit. So yeah, I think this is a pretty compelling offering from Samsung, and it's showing, like, we used to freak out at the idea of Windows running on Qualcomm, and I've got the old Surface back here behind me that had Windows RT and that whole fiasco. These days, it's just de rigueur. Nobody blinks an eye at it, and that Windows 10 S mode can be upgraded to full Windows 10 for free. You don't even have to pay anything.
It's an attractive tablet. I don't know. I think so. I think we're kind of getting to the point where it's starting to feel like the way smartphones have felt to me for years now, where it's like you have brand loyalty, or maybe you don't, but a lot of people do, right? If for some reason a Samsung product is more attractive to you than, let's say, a Surface tablet that's more or less the same price and has a lot of the same bells and whistles, then you're going to like this. Otherwise, it's it's not compelling enough to me for that very reason. But I think for a lot of folks who like their Samsung products, this is just another pretty solid one.
I bet if they had 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, I'd actually be tempted. I think that's the only thing holding me back. I'll be honest, I'm a little tempted as it is, just because it's all in one package for $1,000.
Yeah,
just because it's all like price wise, it all fits. The spec to price ratio is something that makes you salivate a little, not a lot, just a little.
You know, I don't need to. Anything I could say is just going to sound wrong. So, hey, let's talk about a fake moon. That's no moon. That's a satellite from Chengdu. The Telegraph reports that officials from the Chinese city of Chengdu announced plans to orbit a satellite by 2020 that will be capable of reflecting sunlight onto the city's streets at night, replacing street lights. A reflective coating would direct the light over a 50 square mile area. This is not the first time it's been attempted. Russia had the Znamya project, which explored a similar idea with 2 satellites that went into orbit between 1992 and 1999. Neither of them stayed in orbit. They were experimental. And in the case of Znamya 2, it got caught up on on the rocket's antenna and had to be deorbited. But this would be permanent. Officials told CIF News that testing showed the satellite could produce 8 times as much light as the moon.
This is, I mean, it's awesome, and it's also extremely weird, especially because this kind of technology, let's say you're talking about, a city that's very far north, right? Where it's like in the summer, maybe the sun doesn't go down very much, but in the winter, the sun doesn't come up very much. You could sort of control the light that people are getting, but that throws off entire ecosystem potentially. I know this is about streetlights, but a 50 square mile area is quite large to be controlling light that doesn't actually exist otherwise.
The officials equivocate. The officials were not equivocating. They were equivalent. They said the light would be equivalent to a dusk light. Just put that in your head.
So this is
even so though.
8 times what the moon is. So you are still at a point where there is visibility issues. It still seems dark, but it is certainly something that is, I guess we would think, to be unnaturally lit. Get ready. The cheaper we can get into space, and it has gotten exponentially cheaper over the last 5 years. It's going to get further cheaper over the next 5. We are going to see more things like this. This is the new frontier for business, and it's going to be clients that are a lot more raggedy than a city. A city has a budget. We will find a lot of reasons to have a lot of satellites up there. It's just going to be cheap enough.
Yeah. Chengdu, not a small town either. I mean, this is a town of 14.43 million or so as of 2014. So they've got an aerospace budget in this town.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I would like to call on the only one of us on this show that lives in Alaska and thus deals with lights showing up in the middle of the night, although these are natural. What do you make of this idea, Amos?
Honestly, my first thought was this, just like the light up here in the wintertime when it kind of comes and goes so quickly, this is going to drive a lot of photographers absolutely crazy. And as far as like animals, that's got to be a concern. It just the human nature of things. It's awkward up here in the wintertime. We've only got a couple hours of sunlight, and you have basically two dawns each day. And it's getting to that point now. The sun didn't come up today until about 8:30. So this excites me on one front, but it does make me a little wary that we're going to create artificial light, just too much of it. I already can't see the aurora borealis half the time anyway. So,
well, that's a question. Would you want to counteract the dark winters with something like this or not?
Well, if this helps the body produce vitamin D the way the sun does, and that's kind of one of the reasons for seasonal affective disorder, that might actually be really helpful. But if it doesn't, or if it's just a little bit off, if the spectrum doesn't transfer right, there's just too many questions about the light itself on this.
I mean, it's just reflected sunlight, so theoretically it would, but like you say, you need to actually do it.
I think this is more just trying to help with night driving than it is necessarily ravaging ecosystems. But of course, that's what the idiot says before the scientist warns.
Well, and it's also, it's like, this particular city is trying to replace streetlights that are already illuminating the streets, right? So it's like the streets aren't completely dark anyway. This is just an attempt to do it in a different way. But it's sort of like, well, if you light a candle or you have the overhead light, it's a different kind of light. It's not going to be exactly the same. So many questions remain.
It is crazy about the price to get into space that now we're like, you want to know what the cheaper option is over a long enough timeline? A satellite that reflects the sun instead of just running streetlights.
Yeah. What a waste of money running streetlights. Who are we? God. What is this? The 20th
century? Streetlights out of here. We need more.
Money. Everyone's asleep. Turn them off. Essential Products, the startup founded by Android creator Andy Rubin, cut 30% of its 120 employee roster in hardware, marketing, and sales division, sources tell Bloomberg. The cuts come several months after the company canceled plans for a second version of its Essential smartphone and paused development of a home smart device. Essential is reportedly working on a new phone with a small screen that will try and automatically respond to messages on a user's behalf. I personally kind of think that Andy Rubin is somebody that should get should be recognized, and I don't know if he is, as kind of like in the pantheon next to Steve Jobs as one of the most influential smartphone designers ever.
Having helped create, kind of run with the ball with Android, like he.
No, I would say the Sidekick. To me, the Sidekick was the first time that a radically redesigned phone really caught my eye. That made me think like, okay, these could be something more.
The Essential phone, modular component, not that compelling. The phone itself, once they dropped the price to $400, became the best phone you could buy at that price, in my opinion. However, at that point, it had already become a byword. It had become a joke. And it's hard to tell if this is Essential circling the drain, which it might be. It might be just reducing because it can't compete. And this is the slow decline of it. That happens to the best. That happens to the Steve Jobs of the world, not just the Andy Rubins of the world. So there would be no harm if in Andy Rubin's esteem that Justin was just talking about, technologically speaking, if that were the case. Or is it a smart retrenchment? Now, we did have that, as you mentioned, that idea that they're working on a small phone with a small screen. That seems to be a burgeoning trend. So the pieces are in place. If that trend ends up being a very big trend, maybe Essential catches that wave and comes back. Or maybe they come up with some other thing that we don't know about that vaults them in. But right now, they are playing from behind. They have to play catch up.
Well, and I wonder how much Essential might have grabbed what is a share of a very crowded market if that price would have been a lot more attractive from the beginning. Because as you mentioned, Tom, a lot of people are like, "What? No, why would I want that? Way too much." But if it was $400 off the bat, would we be in the same place? Because cutting 30% of a 120 employee team you didn't cut half of them, but you're getting there. I mean,
that's a chunk. Yeah.
You are drastically reducing your workforce.
But I don't think that was their business model. Their business model was making top of the line phones and not good punching above its weight budget phone.
Yep.
Well, if you are a paying subscriber of Spotify, you have a better app. Spotify has reduced buttons from 5 to 3 and is giving genres more focus in its new app redesign. The company's radio service got a redesign as well, including new artist radio playlists. Also, a new search page lets you find artists and albums and podcasts more easily. Also more personalized, showing your own top genres under the search bar. So R&B, rock, hip hop, kids and family, and the like. Spotify's premium subscribers grew to 83 million in the second quarter of this year. It has 180 million monthly actives overall. That includes free customers. Spotify Premium is rolling out to all premium subscribers on iOS and Android globally starting today. Tom, you're a Spotify user.
I am not.
I thought you were.
Oh, Eileen is.
Oh.
I'm a Google Play Music.
Sometimes I fuse the two of you together as one being.
Trust me.
Yeah, this is something that I use Apple Music, not Spotify, and I'm not going to subscribe to both. So I'd love to know from somebody who pays for Spotify how they like the app redesign. But it sounds like it's echoing a lot of the features that I like most about Apple Music, particularly genre stuff that I find has become more and more intelligent. Really, a lot of the stuff that I'm getting from my streaming music subscription is exactly what I want to listen to without me having to really tell it much. Based on previous listening history, obviously.
You know, a lot of folks are speculating this is Spotify attempting to fend off a resurgent Pandora, which not only got into the streaming music game beyond just the radio stuff, but also is being bought by SiriusXM. And if that closes, we'll get a nice big infusion of promotional power behind it. SiriusXM also striking a deal to show up on the Amazon Echo so that you can, like Spotify and Pandora, tell your Echo to play your SiriusXM stations. And of course, once they combine with Pandora, that becomes even more powerful. So coming up with a smarter way to let you easily hear music you want is essentially what this redesign is about. Instead of having a radio tab that you select and then look for things, it's just going to pop up during search and say, hey, we see that you're looking for Quavo. Would you like to listen to a radio station based on Quavo that is not just a Quavo station, but is personalized to your taste that we know about?
So yeah, so Tom, other artists that would pop up on the Quavo station.
Well, just any of the Migos, honestly, would probably pop up. And if it were me, I might add Logic in there. I don't know. Might throw that in as well. So. Back in June, Mary Meeker of Kleiner Perkins Caulfield Byers indicated a slowdown of global internet access in her internet report for 2018. That didn't mean slow access. That meant a slowdown in the adoption of the internet. Generally, the UN counts internet access as someone who has gone online once in the past 3 months or more. Now, The Guardian reports an unpublished UN report from the Web Foundation shows the rate at which the world is getting online has slowed all the way back to 2015, and maybe even a little slower than Meeker reported, especially among women and the rural poor. The data shows that growth in global internet access dropped from a growth rate of 19% in 2007 to less than 6% last year. Meeker had reported a growth rate of 7% in 2017. So it's still growing. We're not seeing a decline in internet usage. Let's be clear. Sometimes these things can get confusing, but the growth rate is slowing. And we are at 50% or not quite, or just a little above 50%, depending on how you cut it. But the point being, there are a lot of people left that don't access the internet. So it's not like we've hit saturation where like, oh, well, there's always going to be slower to get those last 10%. So there's a real concern that this could create a divide where the people who can't access it for social, cultural, or economic reasons. And those reasons will get harder to bridge because they can't access the internet.
Well, I mean, these are the questions that we've wrestled with since the birth of the internet, right? In trying to make these things and tools available, and yet running into the real world outroll problems of, a lot of times the hardest people to get to are in hard to reach areas, and sometimes it is not exactly cost effective to run access to them. But in a lot of these cases, you're right, Tom, this is culture. We might not be reaching saturation, but we might be reaching close to saturation on easy cultural ways of going about it. And life has found a way, specifically with mobile and stuff like that, up till this point. But it from here on, I think that it is just going to be harder. It's going to be difficult, and the hope is that the internet remains robust enough that even if there is a divide, once somebody has it, they can make up for it fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the growth rate too, and I'm looking at Meeker's report, so we're working from a few different numbers, but it did drop down in 2012. Not quite below 10%, but around 10%. And then was a little bit flat and even dipping until 2016 when it bumped back up and then went down. There are cycles to this. So this decline could be explained by a lot of different things. One of which could be that, we had dial-up, right? That brought us to a certain rate. And then we needed broadband to really get us to a new rate. Then we needed mobile. And mobile has made it possible for people to access the internet in places that it is not feasible to spend the money to roll out wired internet. And so maybe we're just waiting on that next wave. The next wave being Project Loon, or Facebook's Project Wing is not Facebook making the equipment anymore, but it's still underway, or any of these other projects like SpaceX has going to provide rural internet from the air.
Well, and I think that this slowdown speaks to exactly what you're talking about, Tom, is that there is a new wave of, okay, well, there are certain rural areas that still are not, we're not laying fiber underground. We've gotten to the point where we're running out of places where you can actually do that. There are new options, but those options are going to take a couple years, a couple cycles, in order to get folks online. There's also, I don't know, it's a much bigger sociological conversation as to, whether people need to be on the internet in order to have a better life. In many ways, you do, in order to be part of sort of the global world that we all live in now. But yeah.
I think having access to the internet is fast becoming a necessity to maintain economic,
financial, and to be able to.
I think the question is more the right to have the internet. Like,
yes, correct. Access, not
get it. Not. I think we are a very privileged a class of folks here in America, where we can now take the second level decision of, well, okay, have I overindulged in this water of life? Or would I be better if I disconnected a little bit? Where I think we've long passed the idea, although many people in America haven't, the idea of like, hey, I desperately it would make my life 1,000,000 times easier if I could access this, but hardware, government, culture has gotten in the way.
Yeah. That's it.
All right. Yeah. Well, you know who talks about these?
I'm sorry, that was me. If you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com.
You know who doesn't miss a beat? The people in our subreddit. I'll tell you what. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Also on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
Hey, what's in the mailbag, Sarah?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Tom. Ox Gradius actually wrote on Twitter. We thought we'd take it to the tweets today. This is in response to our show with Scott Johnson yesterday. Ox says, y'all were talking about streaming tech and terminals yesterday, the same day that I got my Pixelbook. I'm a security engineer, and we're evaluating how moving to Pixelbooks might work for everyone, including those who write code and admin systems. I've got to admit, I really love the form factor of the Pixelbook over my gigantic workstation replacement laptop. With Linux containers coming to Chrome OS, it's becoming more possible for me to work either locally or via cloud systems like AWS. Just my 2 cents.
Hey, thank you for that. I love the kind of feet on the ground. I'm actually using it. Here's what I think. In fact, we got another one of those from Paul, who shares some of his expertise on progressive web apps. Thank you, Paul. Paul says progressive web apps is a label given to a collection of technologies that can be used to progressively enhance a web page, hence the name. You can use those features without being a full app. We talked a lot about the full app experience, but Paul's like, hey, for example, you can access the hardware from a PWA without the app being quote unquote installed, as long as a web page uses HTTPS and gets permission. Hardware APIs like Bluetooth and location can be accessed by any site. Also, the install or add to home screen is really just superficial. As soon as you visit a site using a service worker, that site can start downloading its files for offline functionality. When the user installs or adds to home screen, it's really just making a link to the site in various locations. Functionally, the site is already installed. So when Google talks about supporting PWAs on Windows, they're talking about the linking part, the making it obvious that it's their part. PWAs have worked offline in Windows for a while. They just haven't been on your desktop or in your app drawer. So it was a little bit harder for people to get used to them. Check out the URL Chrome Service Worker-internals on Chrome, and you'll be surprised how many websites are already downloaded offline on your system. Lastly, in addition to Windows and Chrome OS, PWAs do work fully on Android and iOS 11.3 and later. 2 PWAs I love on mobile are the Starbucks and Twitter PWAs. You get 95% of native capability without having to install a battery-sucking native app. And I think I mentioned the Financial Times PWA. That's another one that's really done well. Thanks for the great work. Just sent in my yearly pledge, Paul, the software entomologist, somewhere lost in Texas. Thank you, Paul. That was great.
Paul, gentleman and a scholar. Also, thanks to Justin Robert Young. Man, you have been on the road. It must be good to be home.
Yes. Only so I can leave tomorrow to Los Angeles. I'll be at Politicon this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Not doing any kind of talk, but I am going to be selling my card game, The Contender. So come on into the dealer's room and pick one up if you get a chance. Otherwise, you can, of course, sign up for my free political newsletter at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. 5 stories, 5 days a week, mostly gifts, sometimes hot takes.
Daily Tech News Show has a new spinoff. If you're into games, but not so into games that you get kind of put off by some of the shows out there that go real hardcore, nothing wrong with that, just not your thing, then you need to check out dailytechnewsshow.com/MVGB. Monthly video games briefing with Patrick Beja and Scott Johnson. You like those guys on DTNS. You're going to love them once a month talking about video games in a way everybody can understand. So go sign up right now, dailytechnewsshow.com/MVGB.
Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We love your feedback. Keep it coming, everybody. We're also live Monday through Friday. Join us if you can, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC, and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Chris Ashley as our guest. And of course, Len Peralta will be here too. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Insta question from the chat room. Justin Robert Young, are your gifts still mainly from the Chappelle Show?
Oftentimes, I've diversified a bit. We get them now. There was not from the Chappelle Show today, but there was one from Half Baked.
Okay. All right. There you go, Nick.
Helmed vehicle.
Chappelmed.
A Chappelmed vehicle.
Well, I liked this episode a lot. And I would like to give it a name.
I did too.
What should we name an episode
what do we
this
call
great?
it? Showbot?
Showbit.
Let's peruse.
Lots
Showbadar.
of names, not a lot of votes. So now's your chance, folks. Get in there and
So the pool is wide and shallow.
I like That's No Moon, but maybe it needs a little more context.
Also, I'm almost certain I've used it in some sense before, right?
I mean, it must have.
Dancing in the Moonlight. I like that. I'm going to vote for that.
Ooh.
Little Van Morrison reference. Don't get those enough. Meet you at midnight. Small town, space-sized budget. Except Chengdu is actually a very large.
Right, which we mentioned actually.
China's citywide nightlight. That's not bad.
Yeah, I like that one.
By the light
of the merry
moon.
Throwing Samsung at the wall. Probably not going to make it, but I like it.
By Amos. Good one, Amos.
Well, Zoe put throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I thought it'd just add a little context.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a collab. It's you and Zoe Brings Bacon kind of collaborating there.
I like China's citywide nightlight.
Yeah, we could do that.
You know, it's exactly what it is.
It's getting the votes too.
In theory.
It's got the people behind it.
Well, so as soon as one of us says anything, they're always
votes
sort of start happening. Yeah,
it makes you lose your faith in democracy when.
Yeah. Hey, I like that one. Oh, looks like everyone else does too. Guess we'll just use that one.
Wait, I've changed my mind. I like this other one.
No, now Tom, you can't unvote once you vote, so don't mess with the people.
Sarah wants you to vote for this, but that's going to lead you to lose your job. Start doing attack ads for.
Oh my God! By the way, the text messages have begun to flow.
Yeah, man. I haven't blocked so many accounts. I wonder with this many coming in, because my usual practice is just to block that number. but those numbers are disposable. I wonder how long it is before it comes around that someone's trying to call me that I want to call me, but the number's blocked because it used to belong to a spammer.
I mean, who knows? I'm just going to read you this alphabet soup and let you understand that this costs somebody some amount of money.
Okay.
Hi, Justin. It's Trevor.
Hi, Trevor.
For better choices. No on AA, W, and Y campaign. Measures AA, W, and Y will increase an Oakland residents' tax bill up to $6,200 a year if passed. These measures are rushed, undetailed, and reduced homeowner rights. Can we count on your vote against AA, W, and Y?
AA, W, and Y, and Y.
Wait,
and Y.
Wait, they have a thing against Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hey,
whoa,
Hey, oh, hey.
I'm not voting against R and C. Measures R and C.
Vote Chang.
I'm voting.
You know what? I would run for office, but to be honest, it's kind of scary, and I am still trying to make my way through my sample ballot because it's very confusing. So I'm going through each one online.
Oh, I have no idea. I was joking on politics about proposition ads specifically, like the one I was reading the advertising for, and there was a soda ban that I think it actually passed here in Oakland, that you watched both those ads for and against, and you would have no idea they were for the same thing. Like, one was an ad trying to protect local shop owners, and another was an ad that was about how childhood obesity is a massive epidemic and we need to stem it. Like, I don't think either of them mentioned sodas, and they were none of them they didn't refer to each other in their ads at all. It was just like two totally separate issues.
If you believe more children should have diabetes, then vote yes on B.
No, yeah, it's always like people who are against Measure Q say that old people should die. Grandma,
I want to see the literal interpretation of the ad they're saying existed, right? I want to see the ad that's like, "Hi, I support Measure Q, and I think old people should die. That's why I support Measure Q."
Yeah. Well, that's there was one that we went over that we did do on PX3 that was about Missouri being a right to work state, and both the for or against ad, either of them in the script said the word union, when it's all about whether or not you should, be mandated to be a part of the union.
Right.
Up here in Alaska, we have one. It's actually Measure 1, ballot Measure 1 or whatever, and all the ads are no on one, vote no on one, vote no on one, and you look at it, and ConocoPhillips has sponsored this vote no on one.
Yeah.
And one of their major ads is, well, all the people saying vote yes on one are from outside the state of Alaska. They don't know what we need. And you look at the list of people that have sponsored like vote yes on one, and it's all these nature groups. They're like these habitat groups, everything else. They're trying to save this habitat and this and that. And all the money from trying to vote no on one is from here in Alaska, but it's all the oil companies. I'm like, but neither one of those people are saying what vote one on or vote no on.
No, I mean, well, there are a few. Somebody sent me, like, of course, the exception to prove the rules. Somebody on PX3 sent me like, hey, here's one that is clear and straightforward. And I'm like, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that there is one that exists.
It's the Mickey Mantle rookie card of political ads.
Well, it's weird because I only know of two propositions, and that's because they're just constantly plastered.
Dialysis, right?
Prop 8, the dialysis, and the bridge and road safety, Prop 6. And I still don't know specifically what they do. Prop 8, my wife figured out, was basically setting a fixed rate for what people would pay out for dialysis treatment instead of having the company decide.
And those ads are either saying this ballot prop wants to make dialysis really expensive. And the other ones are saying this ballot prop wants to make dialysis really affordable. And you're like, well, it can't both be right.
Well, yeah.
Is that nationwide? Or sorry, not nationwide.
No, that's a
Statewide,
local.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen those.
It seems it's basically the ads are basically if you vote for Prop 8, that means you're voting for more access. While if you vote against you vote against Prop 8, you're voting for more access. If you vote for Prop 8, you're voting for more affordable care. So it's like these things.
I mean that's now we're getting into the weeds of the actual prop, but yeah.
But it's.
I'm sure we can figure this out if I just read exactly what we're voting.
Yeah, which is what I need to do this weekend. I need to go through each.
Let's just get this is.
Yes, the official text of the ballot proposition will make everything clear, I'm sure.
You know what? I used to use the Guardian for this, the SF Guardian.
We're trying to set up Justin to read the prop.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I'm sorry.
Actually, I don't even think that the California official voters guide lists exactly what's on there.
I've got the actual ballot.
Oh, no. Here, I got it. Text of proposed law. It's in a PDF. Here we go. Proposition 8. This initiative measure is submitted to the people in accordance with the provisions of Section 8 of Article 2 of the California Constitution. This initiative measure adds sections to the Health and Safety Code. Therefore, new provisions proposed will be added or printed in italic type to indicate that they are new. Proposed law. Section 1. This act shall be known as the Fair Pricing for Dialysis Act. Section 2. Findings and purposes. This act, adopted by the people of the state of California, makes the following findings and has the following purposes.
Wait. That's not the ballot, though. That's not what's on the ballot.
This is the text of the proposed law. You're right. This is not.
What's actually on the ballot is just State Measure 8, vote yes or no, regulates amount outpatient kidney dialysis clinics charge for dialysis treatment initiative statute, requires rebates and penalties if charges exceed limit, requires annual reporting to the state, prohibits clinics from refusing to treat patients based on a payment sort, fiscal impact, overall annual effect on a state and local governments ranging from net positive impact in the low tens of millions of dollars to net negative impact in the tens of millions of dollars.
Cool.
That wasn't skewed at all.
No, it says it could save people money or it might cost people money.
Well, I don't want them to text me either way.
I know.
Where's the stop texting me?
I got one yesterday. You know, and a lot of the times to stop getting these notifications, reply with stop. But it didn't say that. But I did reply with stop, and then I got another notification saying that it didn't understand what I was replying to. So yeah, I tripped up the political robot that was texting me in the first place.
I got one for call Senator Murkowski's office to talk, vote this way for Kavanaugh. And I immediately, because I'm an anarchist at heart, went and called Senator Murkowski, not through their number, but through the actual number, and asked her to vote the other way just because this ad was telling me to vote this way. And then I responded to the text saying, thanks. I just thank you for giving me her number. I just texted her and asked her to do exactly the opposite of what you wanted me to. I never got a reply. I was really hoping to start some really fun internet stuff.
Yeah, that's not the way any of that works.
No.
I want to buy a text number list. If there's anybody who listens to this and can sell me a text number list, I just want to text dumb stuff to people in that.
Just random dumb stuff.
I really
like what's dumb stuff? Like, give me an example.
So you
want a list that makes it legal, like an authorized list. Like you're allowed to text these people. Yeah, here's a clean list.
I want to buy a clean. I just want to see what it costs.
Yeah.
So all right, I wanted to keep this close to my vest because if I was able to get it, I really want to do it. I just wanted to text everybody on the list, hey, don't vote if you don't want to.
Oh man.
Can you imagine?
It's a right. It's a privilege, not a right. You have the privilege of saying no.
I just like if you don't want to, don't vote.
You know how many people would start to dig in to find out which party was behind that?
I know
what their purpose was.
Yeah.
It has to be in a really highly charged.
I feel like it would encourage voting. right? People are like,
don't tell me what
not to vote,
right?
I'm gonna go out and vote.
Don't tell me what to do.
Give me that sample ballot.
This is my thing, and I always say it, and it's around this time, and I wind up getting into fights with people on the internet because my point is always, if you don't feel comfortable in what you want to vote for, and then don't vote. It's fine. It's fine not to vote. You know, you should. I mean, I like to. I would extol the virtues of why I enjoy it, but there is the only places that have 100% voting turnout are dictatorships. Free democracies have an element of.
You know what? We don't. But my only problem, because I agree with every word you're saying logically, right? The problem is we don't have a problem with people voting too much. So the people who are like, no, you have to tell people to vote, are trying to improve the people who do have an opinion who don't vote.
Well, this is my other bugaboo, is that everybody who tells somebody just vote, just vote, just vote is really saying just vote for the person I'm going to vote for.
Yeah.
Because
you can see that based on which party is it doing a get out the vote campaign in any given year.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed with, various, bills and measures. And it's like, oh gosh, I have to know all of this. It feels like homework. It's like not fun. Yeah. And it's not fun. It's not going to be fun, in any case. But I've definitely been overwhelmed sometimes where it's like, there are certain things that I feel very strongly about, and other things where I'm like, I don't feel like I read up enough on this beforehand, and I'm just going to go ahead and skip this one. But it doesn't mean it's not an all or nothing thing. So I think that's something that I always try to kind of remind myself. It's like, I'm going to care about certain things that I have the right to vote for. I might not care about all of those things equally. I might not care about some of the things at all. But it doesn't mean that if I don't care about certain things that I shouldn't go.
Oh, you want to know what? All right, go ahead.
Well, real quickly, just two things. First thing, my nuanced position is way too long for a Twitter post or anything like that. But I feel like everyone should go through the motions of voting. Get a ballot, get registered, and look at the ballot. And then you're perfectly, I'm with Justin. If you look at it all and you're like, I have no opinion on any of this, and I don't understand it, don't vote. But you should always force yourself to at least look, get least yourself be in to the position to be able to vote. Yeah. I think that is important as a citizen. The second point I want to make is that we're done with video today, but this conversation will continue on audio. So stick around, folks. There's more to come.
Hey.